Welcome everybody to the CalSOSCOPED Chaos Initial Tournament. This is round 1 and this is the official judging and grading for your guys' submissions. I'm not going to be having this super condensed as a YouTube video, but this will be raw enough for you guys to really just see what we are grading your guys' designs on and just how we wanted to judge this. So the 5 categories are composition, color, creativity, innovation, and attention to detail. This adds up to a final score of 25 that you can get for your graphic. The first matchup for this round was Hakegaard Graphics versus MCB Exclusive. So what did we grade these ratings for Hakegaard? For composition on Hakegaard's, I gave it a 3. I really like the soccer composition and we don't see a lot of that from the Discord. This was really cool to see, and definitely you did a great job placing your subjects and also the text in places that are just doing the card design, just like a lot of service. Now the reason that this lost points is because it kind of, to me, looks more like a poster design than a card. So that was why I just lost points there on the composition for me. But besides that, I think that everything you did, like the layering of your subjects and in the background, these are all in like really good spots. But yeah, just next time, just focus more on, you know, a traditional card. Because that's the theme of this week's challenge. For color, I gave this design a 4, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You have the white and red on that jersey, and you went ahead and did what you had to do with the white and red for the subject. And I like how you have a little bit of that white glow around all your subjects as well. Creativity, I gave this a 3.5 because for me, this looks like a pretty standard poster design in terms of soccer, and I see a lot of these type of designs for soccer, so you did a great job on the composition. But in terms of the creativity, I don't think it's anything too crazy I haven't seen before, but that's not any knock on your skill set or anything like that. Innovation, I also gave it a 3.5 because innovation in this category where we're thinking of, is this gonna push us to the next level? Does this make us wanna get up in design? And for the most part, it does. So that 3.5 is a solid score there. Then for the attention to detail, there were just a couple things I would change maybe on this. Just maybe like the bottom of the mask of the soccer ball was a little bit off, and the push shadow underneath it's pretty good, but it's really like solid black underneath his foot. So I want to get to solid black since it's not making contact with the ground exactly. But besides that, the attention to detail is pretty well done. And the only other thing would be the highlights on the face, because they seemed like a little bit too much highlights on the face. If you had a little bit more discrepancy between the shadows and highlights and balance them out a little bit smoother, then I think this would actually get a 5. Our next design, and who's going against Hakegaard Graphics, is MCB Exclusive. MCB Exclusive decided to do a Tyreek Hill design and doing the jersey swap on top of the card design, so that's definitely props to you. And I really do like this card. For composition, we give it a 5. This really fits the theme of having a sports card in the traditional style, and just really looks dope in the retro style. Is also really creative. I like that about it. So the composition is just really well done. For colors, I gave this a 4 because it's just reflecting the Dolphins colors, and that I really like that like wheat background that gives it that retro vibe. In terms of creativity, I think that the creativity comes from really just doing the jersey swap along with the card, and then the creativity on the background is really good as well. And everything just looks really good and really well placed in terms of what you did here, and you didn't go too crazy with creativity to go way outside of the box, but it just really gets the job done. Innovation, 5, because this makes me want to get up and make a design. The jersey swap is really good along with the card design, so that's why it gets a 5 in my book. And then for attention to detail, I gave this a 4 because I just feel like the halftone could be a little bit more discrepancies with, you know, maybe if you mix it up and put more halftones where more shadows are, I think that would give it more of a dynamic look. If you put that on like where there's more solid shadows, put more of the halftones there. So this matchup ends with MCB taking the round 1 victory with a final score of 23 compared to Hakegaard's 17.5.
Okay, so for this first round, we had a matchup between Calture and Swish. So here is Calture's design. One thing I really liked about this design was the composition. I liked how like all the elements were placed. I like where the text was placed in like the middle with like the whole like kind of slanted kind of vibe. And I feel like the player and of Jalen McDaniels, like the full body picture was really nice in the front, with the bigger picture of him in the back looked really nice. The only thing I would say is that it maybe kind of could seem like a poster design, but I feel like they added like bonus of like the signature made it seem more like a composition. Well, I mean more like a trading card. So I gave it a 4 for composition. So then for color, I really like the colors used, and I feel like the purple and the light blue of the Hornets really worked well with this design. And I don't think there was any sort of like going off the track with the color in this design. So I gave it a 5 because I really liked it. For creativity, I think just the whole like composition really boosts the creativity on this design, and I feel like the little like hexagons you got or whatever on the bottom where Jalen McDaniels is kind of like standing is also a nice bonus, and I feel like that's why it deserves a 4.5 for creativity. Then the next category was innovation, and I feel like this design does really make me want to go out and design, because I feel like it has a lot of things that like could like possibly inspire you to go and design. So I feel like it was pretty good on that part. So I give it a 4 for innovation. And then finally for attention to detail, really the only thing I could really find that would knock off points was I felt like that there should have been shadows where the feet were for Jalen McDaniels. And I also I think that was really the only like knock that I would give off for the attention to detail. So I gave it a 4 for attention to detail, and I gave it the final score of 21.5. So here we have Swish's card design, and I really like the composition on this one. Of course, it is like from Panini, so it's like a already like established like template for a card, but I feel like that also helped it in a way. And I feel like the placement of like LaMelo Ball, and then like you got like the honeycomb kind of like shape in the front is also a nice idea, with the jersey patch in the front as well. So I give it a 4.5 for composition. Color, the color on this is very beautiful. I think the Hornets blue with the like the purple kind of like pinkish kind of color also looked really nice, and I feel like that really added to the design. It made everything kind of pop, and like the hexagon with the light blue and it's kind of glowing is also a nice touch. So I gave it a 5 for color. For creativity, the only reason why it only got a 4 instead of like maybe like a 5 would be the fact that like it's already taken from a card template, or which is like Panini. So I didn't give it a full 5. I give it a 4, but I feel like the stuff that you added was already really good enough to deserve at least a 4. So I think that's why it got a 4. For innovation, this design really makes me want to go out and design, I feel like, because there's just so many like added bonus like touches to this design that I really liked. I think like the shape in the front was also really nice, and like the signature and then the jersey patch were all like really creative ideas. That may have been a thing with Panini, but I think that you implemented that stuff really well, and I think it deserves a 5 for innovation, because this is a really inspiring design in my opinion. For attention to detail, the only thing I really like knocked off was like kind of like the text at the bottom where like it says LaMelo Ball, like that whatever you want to call it, trapezoid, I guess. That shape at the bottom was kind of like, I don't know, like it had some issues with the edges maybe, and then I feel like, I don't remember if it was like the order of the card or whatever template, but I don't know if it was perfect. I give it a 4 for attention to detail, which got the total score of 22.5, and therefore Swish beat out Calture by 1 point for this round 1 matchup. Okay, so now we have the next first round matchup between AJ Mikey and Klatsky Edits. So here we have AJ Mikey's design, and it is a golf design, and for composition I give it a 4. I think the composition was actually turned out really nice. I like how like there's like the kind of like clubhouse kind of like golf course or whatever in the back. I think that was really nice. I also like where the text is placed. And then also like the only thing I would like knock off points for maybe was like the fact that like I didn't really understand the point of having like the repeated golfer. I didn't know. I just didn't find that like appealing to me. So it got a 4 for composition. For color, I think the colors that you did present were really nice with like the blue on like the actual golfer itself. But I feel like it's just kind of like lacking in color besides that, because everything's kind of like gray and white. I understand that that's kind of like a style, but I feel like if you were going for that, you may want to like also consider possibly like making everything like black and white, like on like the skin of the golfer as well, maybe just to add like a little bit more like, I guess, bring out the colors on like the golfers like equipment and stuff a little bit more. So I give it a 3 for color. Now for creativity, I give it a 4.5 because I really liked the idea of using golfer, because not a lot of people did use golfers. And I also feel like just the overall layout of how you place things, I know that's like composition, but I feel like the idea with the whole text being in like in between the two photos is really nice, and like, yeah, I really liked it, and I think it got a 4.5. For innovation, this design overall is pretty good, and I think that it could possibly inspire me to make a design, but there were some other designs that I felt like inspired me more. This, I feel like there's just some things that could have been added, like just some like effects or something, like some kind of like element in like the back or something that could have been added to make this pop a little bit more maybe. So I give it a 3.5 for innovation. And then finally, attention to detail. I think your cuts were really nice, and I think that overall, like, there wasn't a lot of issues with your cuts. And I think just how you place everything and like your attention to detail is really good. So I gave it a 5 for attention to detail. They're still recorded.
Yep, go ahead.
So here we have Clatsy edits design of Emmanuel quickly, and we have like the Big Apple and like New York City. So for composition, the thing that really like threw me off and stuff was it felt like a bunch of just like clip art placed on the thing, and then it kind of feels like quickly just kind of standing on like the water. Like it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. Like I understand like the whole point, because it's like, you know, the Big Apple, you got like New York City in the back, like it made sense. I give it a 3 because it connected, but like I don't think it connected well, and I feel like it was just kind of like an odd choice to put him on like the water. I feel like it would have been better if it was just like a normal kind of style, not like clip art or like cartoony kind of style. I do like the idea of that though, but we'll get to that later. For color, I give it a 3.5. I felt like the color on like Emmanuel quickly was kind of like dark, and it didn't really match the theme of the whole design. Trading card is like the streaks on like him, because it's trying to like look like cartoony. I didn't think that it came out the best, so I gave it a 3.5 because it's kind of dark and it doesn't really match the theme of like the whole like cartoony, which I would assume to be like brighter. So I give it a 3.5. For creativity, I did give you a 4.5 because I felt like this is a really creative idea of like using like this kind of clip art idea. I think in the long run, it probably would have turned out better if you just used a regular design and maybe like regular images that aren't like I guess drawings and stuff. I feel like that would have worked out better for you. But I do like the idea of like using this. It's just I don't know if the execution was 100% there. For innovation, I think that this kind of like style is really nice, but I just felt like that if it was done a little bit better, I think I would have probably given this higher for innovation. So I give it a 3.5. I feel like if this design was like developed more and it didn't feel like it was just a bunch of clip art placed together, that it would have got more in the innovation category. Attention to detail, I gave this a 3.5 because I felt like the attention to detail on like Quickly's like actual like cut of him, I didn't really enjoy the effects that much on him. Like I understand it's like a cartoon drawing, but I feel like it would have been better almost to even like just draw him. I know that's a really hard thing to do, but I feel like the effects kind of threw me off, and they didn't look perfect. So I gave it a 3.5 for attention to detail, and that earned the final score for Classic Giddens an 18. So overall, AJ came out with the win with 20 points to 18 points.
All right, so the next matchup was Childish Kambino versus Eamon E. And for Childish Kambino, my score overall was a 17 out of 25, but breaking down the layers and the subjects, for the composition for Childish, I have a 3.5. A pretty good composition for LeBron, not manipulation, but a sports card. This lost points once again because it doesn't exactly look like, you know, a sports card would look technically or typically. So that's where it lost points for me, where I gave it a 3.5. If this was a poster design challenge, I would definitely have the composition up to around a 4.5. For the colors, I would say that it works really well. You utilize the purple and yellow that we use from the Lakers, so can't really give you anything that's crazy high, because I feel like you could have utilized some more colors on there and implemented some type of sports cards, trading cards, factors that would bring this grade up with color. But since you did just stick with the yellow and purple, I can't say that it's too bad. So right there, I gave you a 3.5. Creativity, also a 3.5. Nothing too out of the ordinary. I'm used to seeing this poster design type of style with one very large head and then like two smaller subjects. But for creativity, I would say to, you know, play around with the text a little bit more, maybe add some lighting, look at some sports cards references online, and see how they really put together really unique sports cards that are really appealing to the eye. Innovation, does this make me want to get up and design? Somewhat it does, so I gave it a 3.5. It's not really changing the game in any sort of way for me, so that's why it's a 3.5 there. And attention to detail is 3.5. I just think that some things were maybe a little bit too sharp. If you see the highlights on his arm sleeve, they might be a little bit too bright, so I would bring those down on the highlights. The masking is pretty well done. I really like how you did, just like the composition, it looks pretty good. And attention to detail is also lost when the LeBron, see how that LeBron text is not centered? That was a big turn off for me, because I feel like that's a very important thing, to have your text centered, unless you're going for it and you, man, I want to make it look like it's purposeful, but it doesn't look purposeful right here. And also that stroke underneath, you're going to want to do a non-fill layer and then just the outline stroke. Instead of doing the outline, just having it on a stroke, you want to do like an actual shape layer so that you don't get that curve around the outside for the outlined LeBron. So now we have Eamon E, and I give you a total score of 22.5. So you did a really good job on this Nikola Jokic card, and this was one of my favorites of the ones that I judged. I really liked it, man. If you guys were really to zoom in here, you guys can see all the detail that's going on here, and I really like the impact of this cartoon looking, this painting looking style. That's really dope to me. I really like how it looks here, and just utilizing everything. But composition, I go with a 4. It's just a really good composition. Maybe you could have had a little bit more space filled in here, so that's why I just took that point off for composition. But overall, it's a really solid composition, man. Great job. For colors, I say 5, and you know, just the red and yellow just really worked very well here. And you even, you know, you had that gradient transition from the brighter red to the darker at the bottom, so that's really good that you had like that nice burst of color there, and it really just draws my eye to this. Creativity, I would say this is actually a 5, because I didn't see any other cards like this in the batch, and this was really creative, doing your thing with the highlights there and covering them with their shadows with a red on that Jokic mask in the back, doing the paint style. I'm not sure what you use. I'm gonna have to ask you if you use like filter guy or something like that, but really good job there. Innovation 4, definitely makes me want to get up in design. Attention to detail, 4.5. I would just say the one thing that you maybe could have changed was these points per game right here, but besides that, yeah, I mean, attention to detail is really spot on. So that was a great job, and that gives you a 22.5 out of 25. And so with that matchup, Eamon gets the W over Childish Kambino. All right, now we have the matchup between HK and ProdByZeef. HK will be first up. And HK. So let's see what I graded for you. So for your composition, I had to grade it a 2.5 overall because I just really was not feeling the setup on this one. I feel like the Lamar Jackson and the 8, I feel like this part at the bottom might have been rushed. And then, just some of the parts on the composition may have been rushed. So that's why I had to grade this like a lower scale on the composition. Color wise, the colors are there. So, it's a standard 3 that I gave it, purple and whatever his jersey color is. So, it's a pretty good color scheme that you have going on here. Creativity, 3.5 because you did go outside the box and do sort of a manipulation, but in terms of like card art, the creativity isn't really there for me. So that's another reason I docked the points off there. Innovation as well, because it doesn't make me want to get up and design too much, because I don't know, I just feel like just some things down here were just rushed. I don't know, maybe you just didn't have time to complete a lot of the things you want to do, but I just feel like it was a little bit rushed. And then that's why there's also the 3 on attention to detail here. So that gives you a total score of 14.5. All right, now ProdByZeef for composition, I give you a 5 because I was really feeling this composition and it just really looks good. Jamatt Chase, dope athlete, and a dope composition to go with that. Color wise, I would say this is a 4.5 out of 5 because you did a really good job with the orange and black and implementing all those colors in little elements. Like you have that white square, you have that black background, and you have the orange in the top right. I would say the orange in the top right may be, you can maybe drop or actually bring the saturation up a little bit on that and then just match it to that like hot orange on Jamatt Chase instead of the less saturated one. But that's just a really nitpicky thing, but the colors are there. Creativity, a 4. I like how you added those speed lines on there, and you kind of just went for something a little bit different here. So that's why I give the creativity 4. Innovation is also a 4 because this makes me want to go out and try a poster design just like this actually. So really good job. And for the attention to detail, this is the only thing that lost a little bit of points. Gave this a 3 because the feet shadows could be a little bit better on that first mask, and then the speed lines are a little bit blurry, a little bit not as precise as I would probably want them to be. And I don't know if every person on them needs them. I know the running one might need them, but I don't know if the top one would need speed lines as well. And then just doing some more highlighting things would just bring this together, and just doing some more shadow, taking care of some more shadows. So yeah, but a good score overall, a 20.5 out of 25, and that gives ProdByZeef the victory in this round. All right, this next matchup is Jamatt versus Ben9QB. And for Jamatt, let's pull up the scoring sheet. And for Jamatt, I have a 4.5 on your composition. This is the case because this is just a really solid composition. If we're just looking at the composition for what it is, you have the portal there, and then you have like him circling around the portal for that subject. And I also like the outside detail. That's a really nice touch, and this gives us a Marvel vibe. So I really see the Marvel vibe that you were going with here, and you really pulled it off well. Now for colors, I would say that this is a 3. I feel like there's no disparity between the very bright yellow and the very saturated red. So they're both very saturated colors. The easiest way to make some contrast is to saturate one of your colors if you're gonna have 2 main colors, or have them brighter or darker in some spots. And over here on this card, I feel like it's just all one tone and one saturation. So the colors are definitely still cool, contrast colors, but that's why I would grade this a 3. For creativity, I would say this is a 4 because I didn't really see any other cards like this that kind of try to implement some Marvel type of vibes here. And yeah, so this is just a really creative piece. So yeah, that's a 4. Innovation, 3.5. This kind of makes me want to get up in design. So 3.5 there. And for 2.5 on attention to detail, I feel like there's just a lot of things that are splayed out here, and that you just gotta take more time to do and develop this, because I just feel like you didn't take that much time to develop it the best that you could. But yeah, so that's why it lacks in attention to detail for me. There's also a lot of clarity and stuff like that, and kind of it looks okay like zoomed out, but zoomed in it looks kind of crazy. So that gives you a score of 17.5 overall. Next we have Ben9QB, and for your composition I give this a 4. The reason I give this a 4 is it's a pretty nice setup. You have the signature on the left, the masker on the right. The shapes are cool, but they kind of just lose me a little bit. Like, I think if you just separated your shapes a little bit more on this, like the pentagon in the background is kind of uneven, and then you match that with the triangle. So I mean, that's where it would just lose points for me, but overall it's a pretty good composition. Color 3, I think that the colors are really good here, and just that orange just throws it off a little bit. Maybe if you could have found possibly like a darker auburn. I know that it's the Auburn Tigers and it's the evolution, but I don't know, maybe you could just kind of figure something out to get the orange in there in a better way if you're going to use those 3 masks for the composition. And then just otherwise than that, there's just a little bit of areas that maybe should be darker. Like maybe you should try a darker background. I just feel like would kind of bring everything to more of a contrast. There's not too much contrast on here. Creativity 3.5, because no one really had done something like this and made the evolution piece, so I really like that you did that. Innovation a 4, because I like the evolution and it makes me want to get up and design something like that. And then a 2.5 on attention to detail. I think that the foot shadows just have to really improve a lot more, and just a lot of little things around the masking and the subjects that are just on the canvas. Just take a little bit more time to develop the scene, like develop your shapes more, develop the lighting more, try to get some more contrast in there. So bring in some darker tones to bring out some more contrast, and then you'll be on your way. So great job, and this is a 17. This gives Jamatt a 0.5 edge with the victory. All right, the next matchup is CT.Gfx versus MKingCreative, and I really did like both of these designs, so great job to the creators on this one. CT.Gfx, this was a really great sports card, and you can really see that sports card was very influenced and picked up on this. So for composition, I have a 5. You guys can just see by this and the variety of the shapes and the variation of the brushes, it really gives you that sports card vibe. So therefore it is a 5. And colors, for colors I have a 4. I would just say that, you know, some of the red on the top is kind of or inching towards like more of a orange. So maybe just tweaking that red a little bit, and then, you know, maybe just implementing a little bit of lighting, like a light source would be really good for color here. But that's the only things I would knock off for the color. Creativity 4.5, because this is just really creative and this piece is really well put together. So yeah. Then for innovation 4, this makes you want to get up and design. I really like this picture of Cristiano Ronaldo, so you used a great picture and it just looks really good. So it makes me want to get up design for sure. Attention to detail would be a 4, because just overall I feel like there is not much I could really say about the attention to detail. Maybe just making your subject a little bit more interesting, so maybe using some more filter on him, or maybe just like making him more dynamic on the shadows, and just making the skin tone maybe a little bit more saturated, just to pop him out of the canvas and of the subject. But besides that, like I said, it's really good. And then just adding some lights and maybe a light source would be really good and add to this even more. So that gives you a final score of 21.5. Now we have MKingCreative. Nice composition right here, pretty cool. I give the composition a 3.5 because it doesn't really give me those sports card vibes. The outside of it does, but just from how it looks, it's not really giving me the sports card vibes. It's giving me the manipulation vibes, which is okay. But in this challenge, I'm looking for the sports card vibe. That's what the challenge is all about. 3.5 on the color, because can't really say anything bad about the color. The blues and the subject is matching the scene, so the color is a 3.5. There's nothing too interesting about the color, so therefore it's just 3.5. Creativity 3.5. Once again, nothing really eye-opening here, but it is pretty cool. Innovation 3.5. Does make you want to go out and make a manipulation, but Doesn't make me want to make a sports card, so therefore it's a 3.5. Attention to detail is a 4. The only thing that is lacking here is the perspective of the feet, and he'd probably be up a little bit like further because his perspective of feet is not matching the ground, so it looks like he's kind of like floating on the ground. So therefore, I don't know, I would probably go in and use a little bit of liquify. That can almost always do the job as long as you don't use it enough. Just like slope those feet a little bit towards the ground to give that illusion that he's actually on the ground. So yeah, that's the only thing. So yeah, and I like how you have the snow blurred in the front, so that's paying attention to detail. So great job here. And the final score is 18 for you versus CT.Graphics at a 21.5. So CT.Graphics takes the W here. So now we technically have BBA versus SWO, but since SWO is not here, then BBA takes the automatic W, but we still will go over his composition and all that stuff. So overall, he got a score of 21, which is really, really high, and we really like this one. Composition overall was a 4.5, bro. You really did a great job with the hex and all of this, the outside edges and everything like this. And this really just looks like a card. It looks like a piece of card. It really looks like a sports card that I would get and be really excited to have. Color, 3.5 here. I liked how you did the blue and red, but I don't know, this like tealish red and then the blue, I don't know if that really matches too well. And then the logo here should have also been changed, in my opinion, to this teal. So maybe that's just the kind of an attention to detail thing, but just maybe take that into consideration. But I do like how you did try to change the game up a little bit and have that teal there. So 3.5, not too bad. Creativity, a 5, because you took a lot of liberties here and you really went outside of the box and tried to do your best here. So I really appreciated that. Innovation, a 4.5, because this really makes you want to get up and design. There weren't a lot of people who were doing this type of stuff like you did, so this is a really great job done. And then for attention to detail, I have it at a 3.5, and that is because some things, like the biggest thing for me was the shadow. So when you're gonna have like a robot manipulation, you're gonna want to have more shadows on the skin tones, and you won't actually cut the skin. You'll have more of like dark shadows on the inside of these crevices, which will actually bring it more depth and more three-dimensionality, because right now it looks a little bit flat, right? So you want to have more three-dimensionality. And yeah, maybe I'll have to do a YouTube video on that soon enough. So overall, we give you a 21, and yeah, so you're gonna take the W here. All right, 6. So for your composition here, you are going against TR Designs. He did not even put anything in, so therefore you get the automatic buy. But composition was a 4 out of 5. That's just because it's a really nice composition. Doesn't remind me of a poster design, but could pass as a card, right? Maybe if we get like James Harden's name on there a little bit larger, then this can definitely pass as a card, and the composition is nice. Color wise, I gave it a 3 just because the placement of the colors is a little weird to me. I know it's a more abstract, but I'll elaborate more on that as we go further. Creativity, I gave this a 4 just because I saw no other cards like it. So I liked how you had a lot of creativity here. Now the innovation is also a 4, but I want to get to attention to detail. Attention to detail is the reason I brought this down a lot, is because I feel like on the blending of those gradient maps or whatever the highlights you were for the colors that were used on James Harden, you could have blended them more. So like use the feather tool, right? Or use like use some type of tool to blend these colors in, or even if you're on your gradient map, you can use the gradient map and make more of a transition to have your colors blending in with each other, because right now they're really spotty and, you know, just really grainy and rough where the transitions are. So if you clean up those transitions, this is going to be a really nice piece. But overall, still definitely a great piece, and you got a 17.5 out of 25, and you take the win for this round, as no one as your opponent did not submit their design, so thank you. Now the last matchup for me is going to be Balliswillbrant versus ZenGraphics. So Balliswillbrant, you really killed this. This is really one of my favorite designs of the whole batch. Saw this earlier in the submissions, and I was really blown away by just the colors and the composition, and really just the cleanliness of this. It's just super clean, man. Your work is always clean, so I am not surprised. But composition wise, I gave this a 5. Just look at the composition. Everything just molds together so well. You use the hardwood well. and it gives it this like irony silver type look, really giving that card feel, which we're going for. Color overall, I gave this a 4. Really do like the colors that you integrated here. The green and purple is always a great contrast color, so doing that, whether it was purposely or you just felt going off of that, it's really cool. Could be a little bit more towards purple, I think. We're on the pink purplish side, but I'm not really gonna debate that too much. Creativity, I gave this a 4.5. I really think this was a creative piece, and I enjoyed looking at it. It was just really cool, man. Artwork by Wilbrant on the top, so you know, all those like little creative touches, the grunge on the bottom, the shapes, just it's all coming together right here in this piece, man. And innovation wise, definitely give this a 5. Makes me want to get up and create. And attention to detail, gave it a 4. The only thing I would say is on these highlights and everything, just make them layers, and then you can blend them out a little bit more smoothly and make it more smooth transitions. And maybe adding a little bit of light on the inside, right? So that would be it for the critiques on that, because everything else is just really good, man. So overall, I gave this a 22.5 out of 25. Okay, now last up we have ZenGraphics. Thank you for this submission. This will be my final for what I'm doing on this side, but you know, the video may go because of Nick's side or whatever. But Zen, I gave this a 3 for the composition, just because I kind of get lost in the composition, but it's not too bad overall. So I mean, maybe just choosing the same jerseys would have helped this out a lot, or maybe just maybe just the background, just make it more distinct from the foreground. Yes, that would be the best option there to make the composition a lot better. But overall, it is pretty solid, so we're right in the middle, 3. And for color, I gave this a 3.5 because the colors are cool. They're just mixing up a little bit. Like there's no real like difference of the oranges, if you know what I mean. So you have like really saturated orange in the front, and then like also like as it gets further back, the colors are still saturated. So think about like when you look at a mountain in perspective, the further it goes back, the less saturated it is, and this can give depth. Creativity wise, gave this a 3.5. Thought this was a pretty creative piece overall, pretty solid, nice. It fits the sun's theme, so 3.5 overall was fair to me. Innovation gives this a 4. Does make me want to go up and make a manipulation, and definitely just create something. And then the attention to detail, I gave it a 3 just because there's a lot of lighting things here. You went really in with the lighting. So I would just say on the next time, focus on one light at a time, or maybe don't do as complicated of a manipulation, because this would even be really complicated for very experienced designers doing a manipulation like this. So maybe do a piece with not as many light sources that are bouncing around on the canvas, so that you can really focus on 1 or 2 and make everything come together. So overall, I give this a 17 out of 25.
Okay, and then last but not least, we have Arcc's design, and it is a Jimmy Butler design. For composition, it's kind of simple, so I give it a 3.5. I feel like just the text, and then you got like the, I guess, not liquid, there's a word for it, I guess, just not glitch text, but I think you know what I mean. It's the text that's behind Jimmy Butler. It's pretty simple, so I got a 3.5 in my opinion. There wasn't a lot going on. For color, 3.5. I feel like this is one of the categories that could have been lower almost, because like Jimmy Butler looks really pink, and I mean, I could see how like you're trying to match it to the background maybe, but I feel like it's almost too pink, or the whole design is pink. So I didn't really like it that much. So it finished out with a 3.5. For creativity, I thought it was like just really simple, so that's why I only got a 3 for me. Was the fact that it was just kind of like there. Yeah, like just having the one cut there just was just, I guess, not the greatest design choice. I feel like people that like took the risk and just put the one cut of them in there was probably a risk that got them not as much points as other people that had like a really interested in composition or something, but it got them like that extra half point that may have been like a 3 or something. For innovation, I think a 3, because I just find this design really simple, and I think that's why I just didn't really do well, because I get inspired by a lot of, I can get inspired by a lot of simple designs. I think it's just the fact that like, if it's something that I've seen before, or if it's nothing new to me, then I don't really get inspired by it, so that's why I only got a 3. And then finally, for attention to detail, again, this is kind of go back to color, and then also a little bit of like the hair is kind of messed up, like you left the blue part there, and then I think like this area is kind of a little bit off. I could have probably, if I were to go back and regrade this, I think that the underarm is a little bit messed up maybe. I would probably would have maybe assigned my points to maybe like creativity, now that I'm thinking about it. So it would have probably still been a 16.5, but it would have been a 3.5 for creativity, not 3. I would probably have to move the color over to attention to detail to give you like a 4, and then maybe the composition to, I would have to figure it out, but it would most likely would have been either like a 16.5 or a 17, but you finished with a 16.5 as your final score. So overall, I think this is, I don't know if it was the lowest grade design, but if it was, I don't think this is a bad design overall. I just think there was a lot of other competition that maybe, I wouldn't say outperformed, but they just got higher scores because I think that maybe their design worked a little bit better. But overall, I think that what you did here is actually not that bad, and I think that you still have like potential anyway. Maybe it was just the trading card wasn't the best thing, I guess, maybe for you. But overall, that is it for all the trading card designs. So for the next judging, we have Fireball here with his Fernando Tatis Jr. San Diego Padres design. And we can first start off with the composition. I do like the idea that he's on the beach, and I do like the background. I like the placement of all the cuts. So overall, I think this is a really good composition. I gave it a 4 because I've seen, compared to some of the other competitors in this tournament, there is some really brilliant ones, but this one is right up there with them probably. And then for color, I gave you a 4 because I really like the design of or not the design, but the color of like the sky and like just all the colors that you brought together. You also did a good job at matching the color on Fernando Tatis and like his face and stuff. Now the only reason why I didn't get like maybe like a 4.5 or like a 5 maybe is the fact that like I don't really see the color matching as well on the lower cut of him as much as I do on the top cut. But overall, really nice colors. I gave it a 4 for that. So for creativity, I give it a 3.5. The thing is that the idea of like having like a player and then like just a smaller cut of him, it kind of gets overused sometimes. I used it a lot, but like it's sometimes just like kind of not bland, but like not original. But I give you a 3.5 on it. I still like the design. So overall, it was a really nice idea with the composition. I just think that it could have been maybe a little bit more creative. So for innovation, does this make me want to design? I think it kind of does. Like I really like the color, and I think that if I were to like make a design, I would like base it off like, or like think about the color, especially when we're doing with this kind of design here. So I really like that. Now for the attention to detail, I gave you a 3. The one thing that I did not like about this was like the Padres like drop shadow. It just kind of like threw me off, but I think it could have been done. But the thing is that I think that the drop shadow should have been a little bit more like, you can like turn up the size on it. I don't think it should have been like that defined, because it's almost like a solid shadow. And then the other thing is probably the Fernando in his name on the bottom. I think it could have been a different font because it's kind of hard to read. I mean, I could tell what it is, but like, I don't know if everyone else can. And then also, I think that was the main issues, and I think maybe like the shadow on his foot was a little bit odd on the bottom. I don't know if there were two different backgrounds for the sky and like the beach or whatever, but I don't know if they were blended well. But overall, it was still pretty good. I think the cuts were good enough, so I give you a 3, which gives you the final score of 18.5, which meant that you won your matchup. So for this next design, we have Christian F's. We got Christian F's Jason Tatum design. So I really like this one, and I was kind of disappointed that it didn't advance, because you were up against a really tough opponent, and I think that's probably. I think that if you were up against maybe someone else, you would probably advance. But this is a really good design. I don't think that this design deserved to like get knocked out for. So first of all, we have the composition. Overall, I think the composition is good. I think the only thing I didn't really like was the fact that you got these clovers here, and it just feel like they're slapped on. And then, I mean, I do like this placement of the Jason Tatum in the bottom left, but I don't like the bottom right one, because like, I don't even know if there's shadows here. It just kind of seems like it's just placed there. I feel like it would have been better if you did something similar to what Cams did almost, with the whole like staggering thing. So you'd have like a big image of him in the back, and then the medium size, like the one in the bottom left, and then you would have something over. You would have like the one of him dribbling over the Jason Tatum. I think that may have looked better, and it would also like direct focus to the middle of the design. But overall, it was a pretty good composition anyway. For color, I give you a 4. I think the only thing that I noticed was like maybe there was some blues in like this kind of, and it was a little bit odd. But I don't think there was really any issue with color that much. For creativity, it was a 4.5. Overall, it was really creative. I think that there was some good features about this, was they were creative, and I think the only reason why I didn't get a 5 was I think that maybe that some of the other designs had a little bit more creative features on it than I would say that yours did, but like it was almost like up there with them. For innovation, I gave you a 4. I really like this, and I think that this does kind of inspire me, because I think that like sometimes the stuff that like you see that you can improve, that someone can improve, is something that inspires you to make and go out and work. So I gave you a 4 on that. And then finally, attention to detail. I think this was overall really good. I think maybe the beard was a little bit weird, like there on the left side, but overall I think this was really good attention to detail. I would only say that you may want to match the colors on the jerseys. I mean, not like change the color of the jersey from white to green or the other vice versa, but like this one kind of has like a purple look, and then this one has like a yellow. But overall, I think it was a really good design anyway. So overall, the final score for this design was a 21. Okay, so for the next round, we had Shade's design. It was an NHL hockey trading card. So for the composition, I gave you a 3.5. Overall, I think the composition is solid. I think like the slanted like ice in the back was kind of like an odd choice in my opinion, and also like I didn't really like the position of like the text. I felt like it just kind of like just placed on the side for no reason. I feel like it would have worked, but I feel like the area where you put it just doesn't give it enough attention, and then like you don't really know who it is, and especially with the star. I mean, if you're an NHL fan, you may have a good idea of who this person is, but it's kind of hard when you have to tilt your head and like look to see who it is. I'm not gonna attempt to pronounce the name because I'm not gonna do that. I'm just not good at pronouncing names, but I think the composition wasn't bad. So I mean, it got a 3.5, which is pretty solid in my opinion. I want you to ignore the dinging noise in the back. Apologies. For color, I give a 3.5. I feel like the only issue with this thing was that like the color in the Minnesota Wild logo was kind of like an orangey, and then you have like the red of the text of like his name, and like it also kind of gets thrown off on like the jersey as well. And I feel like the players kind of like saturated. I feel like it's a little bit too saturated, and like the greens don't match properly. So I gave you a 3.5 on that. For creativity, I gave you a 3.5. It's another 3.5, but I think it's just because like the composition, in my opinion, was kind of just like basic. But overall, I mean, the addition of the stars is something that I've seen other people do before, but it's not terrible. It's not like unoriginal, but I don't think it's like, I guess like it's crazy or anything, in my opinion at least. You're subject to your opinion, but yeah. So 3.5 for the creativity, and then for innovation, I give you a 3. I feel like this design is just kind of like, in my opinion, like, I don't really know if this inspires me, but it's just kind of like, it's a good design, but I just don't know if it really inspires me. And then for finally, we have the attention to detail, which got a 3.5, and the reason for this is due to, I think I'll be able to zoom in, but I think like the hair is kind of a little bit odd in my opinion. And then also like, if we come down here, I think like, it's just, I think like the hands are kind of like this area right here where the cut is a little bit odd. Maybe that's just me, but I think it just doesn't look right. But overall, it got a final score of 17. So for this next design, we have AceGraphics Brandon Ingram card. This one I really liked as well. This is one of the favorites I think that a lot of people liked, and also this was like one of the first cards I think to be posted for the trading cards, so that also was a very good thing to see, because like this was a really good work for it to be like posted that fast. So for composition, I give you a 4.5. I think that the lighting and everything looks good. I think the only thing that I would say is that I don't really feel like these kind of like manipulation things work on a trading card. But I think it was executed well to the point where it didn't matter that it was a manipulation, and I think the only thing that I would like to look at maybe was the, I guess, foot shadows. I feel like they were kind of a little bit off in my opinion. Like it just kind of didn't, like I don't really know where they are with the composition wise, but the light kind of, yeah, the light does make sense. You got like, if this is like where the, I guess, sun or moon or whatever it is, like it kind of like tracks down. I think maybe on this side there could have been light, but that works as well, I think. So overall, good job on the composition. So then we move on to the color. Color's really nice. I mean, it's purple, and I think it matched well with the jersey as well when you did add the color correction to the jersey. I don't really know if I liked the pink and purple though. I think it worked for, like, it matched, I guess, Brandon Ingram, but I don't know if it was the best choice of color, especially when you have this like purple border. I mean, it does fit with the theme a little bit, so that is the case, but 4 for color on that. And then we have for creativity a 4. I do like how this is not your ordinary card design. It's like kind of like its own like scene. That was the only thing I didn't like about it as well, kind of. But I think this was a pretty good job. Also, the text on the bottom, unless this is actually from like Don Russ, the card company or whatever, that text is also a very interesting text or font. I think that was a very cool choice. For innovation 4, yeah, I think this one is definitely pretty inspiring, especially for like manipulation designs. Like the lighting is pretty good, and it also like shows you how you can like make your own composition or whatever. So I think that was a really good job on that part. And then finally, for attention to detail, I got a 4. I think that the shadows were one thing, and also I think that like these rocks are kind of like you can kind of see how they're like, I guess they're borders or whatever, but like they were kind of faded, but they didn't seem to be faded at the edges. And like you got this glow coming off the side over there. But overall, I think it was actually it was probably a little bit better almost for attention to detail. Overall, though, you finished out with a 20.5 for your final score. So yeah. So for this next design, we had CamsWrldd Stephen Curry design. I don't really know if I should really go over this one at all almost, because like this is probably the most beautiful card design I've seen at all of all the other designs, to be honest. Like I don't think anyone really competes with this. So it got a 24.5, the final score. Composition was great. I like all like the whole like I guess staggering curries, and then you got the core in the bottom. I think that's really nice. Color, this is the only thing I really like docked off a point was I feel like maybe the color on this jersey is just kind of a little bit off. I don't know, like the logo didn't really, I see what you're going for with the yin and yang, but like with 30, I don't know. I feel like if that was the case, you would also like highlight this maybe, or well, it may have been I guess it could have been the NBA 75 Nike logo, but well, I didn't even realize that this had like the yin and yang, so that's something else I didn't realize, so that is also good. But the other categories were all 5s. I mean, it's really creative. Does this inspire me to design? I believe so. I think like this is just really creative, and I think it allows you to like get some inspiration possibly. And then attention to detail was almost perfect. I don't think there's really anything I could dock off points for. So overall, it got a final score of 24.5. So I really like this. Good job on this design. So for this next design here, we have the THENFLCAST design, and it is a design of Giannis on the trading card. So for first of all, we have the composition. This got a 3.5. In my personal opinion, I didn't like it as much. When Cal saw it when I was like, when we were looking at the other designs, it got he liked it, but I didn't really like it at first, and I thought that it was unfair if I changed it again. I just think that like I didn't change at all really when he mentioned it, but I just feel like it's just kind of bland, I guess. Like, I mean, there's not really a lot going on here. There's just kind of like you got the picture of Giannis, and then you got like the text. I mean, this little element over here is kind of cool, which I did like, but overall it's just kind of like, I guess, basic. I mean, the lighting is pretty good, so that does get points probably, but I think that just overall it's kind of like very simple, but I don't know if that's good for this design, I guess, compared to the other things. So then for color, 3.5, I feel like Giannis was a little bit saturated, like he's just really red in this one, so I didn't give full points for that. But overall, I mean, there's not really a lot of color in here, which maybe he's lacking a little bit. I know that the green would have probably looked good in the back with the trees, but I feel like adding something else that has color would have been nice. Also, like the white kind of just doesn't come from anywhere, so it just doesn't really make sense. I mean, I guess you could see like this, but then if that was the case, like if this little like white area in the back over here was like the light source, then I don't think it should be like, I guess, shine on him up there. And then for the next category, we had creativity. And this again got a 3.5, so very similar to Shades at the moment. So for this creativity, I think I just gave points off just because I just didn't feel like the composition was really creative. I just felt it was just kind of bland. I mean, I do like this text feature, but overall there's not really a lot going on for me to like give points. So I only gave a 3.5. And then finally we have innovation and then attention to detail. For innovation I gave you a 3. I don't really know if this really makes me want to design. I just feel like it's just kind of simple. There's not a lot going on, so it doesn't really inspire me. So I only gave it a 3 for that. But then finally for attention to detail, I think you did a really good job on the lighting. So I did get points for that. And overall, I think it's just a really like detailed, I guess, with all the light and everything is pretty good. I mean, I think the only points I probably docked off was the fact that the lighting up there was kind of just, I don't know if that would have made sense, because it's also like a really bright light and like the back is not really that bright, so it didn't work well. But overall, pretty good. I think this area kind of got cut off maybe, so that also probably got docked. And yeah, so overall the final score was a 17.5. So here we have Aleks's design. I really like the composition on this. I think it really reminds me of like those old kind of fashion cards. So overall it got a 4 for composition. The line and everything is really nice, and like the star background is really nice, so I gave it a 4. For color, I gave you a 3 because I just felt like Tracy McGrady was like a little bit like had too much contrast, and it was just really blue, and there wasn't really a lot. I know that there's not really a lot of colors you can use for the Orleano Magic, but it just looked really dark, and then also just too much blue, I guess. So for creativity, I give you a 3.5 because I feel like there could have been more done with like the background. There's just a lot of potential that was just kind of just sitting there, and I think maybe like if you use a different cut or something to Trace McGrady, it would have worked out better. I know it kind of fits the theme, this cut right here, but like I feel like having a different like image of him and then like some kind of effect going around him or something, it would have looked really nice, and it would have probably like brought up the score. So I give you a 3.5 for creativity. For innovation, I give you a 3. I think the only reason why it doesn't like inspire me as much to make design is the fact that it's just kind of simple, and like it's just a picture of Tracy McGrady with like I guess contrast and stuff, and like the effects, and there's just background. So like it really didn't like, I don't think it would be something that would like inspire me as much as some of the other things. I mean, it's a really cool retro design, and I think that may be something that would inspire me, but like I gave you a 3 for innovation on that. And then finally for attention to detail, I gave you a 4. The reason why this got a 4 was I think it just what's it called? I think if we can zoom in here, like I don't know if his eye got cut off there, but if it did, and like the cut is kind of like there's like some choppy parts on it, but I think it's just the cut maybe. And yeah, so in that category I gave you a 4, so it wasn't like it was bad, and the final score was a 17.5. So next up we have Boyce's trading card design here. So this is a soccer player. Again, I'm not gonna probably be able to pronounce this, so I'm just gonna not say it. But so here is his design, and then first we have, or I guess I could, yeah, we have the composition, which earned a 3. I feel like it's just kind of simple. I think that's where it kind of lacked the most. It was just kind of just, you placed an image of a dude or a soccer player, and it just kind of was just, I guess, there, and there was not really a lot going on. I don't really like the idea of it also being a backface image. I think one thing with the THENFLCAST, what he did was he had a front-facing image, I'll be honest, which I think makes more sense. I mean, at least the player is showing like his face in the thing, so it's not the worst, but I feel like it's just kind of, this card design is kind of simple in my opinion. And then, so it got a final score of 3. Now for color, I did like the color on this, so I gave it a 4. I think the blue was really nice, and like you got this kind of like orangey yellow in like the back with like the little like, I guess not triangles, but whatever you want to call these things. I mean, it kind of worked well. And also you got like this border around here, which also matched the, I guess, color of the card, so I think that was also not bad. So that got a 4 for color, and then creativity, it was a 3.5. I just kind of feel like that this was just kind of not bland, but also there wasn't a lot going on to the point where I can really give you a lot of points for creativity on this. I think that was the only issue on this design here. So you got a 3.5. Innovation 3. I think this also kind of goes back to the whole idea that there's not a lot going on, so there's not a lot for me to get inspired by. So we got a final score of 3. And then finally, attention to detail. The cut is really well done, I think. So that got points, and overall it's pretty good. I mean, there was just a little bit like right here. That's probably how it looked. It just looks a little bit odd to me. I feel like he could have done maybe a job of like removing like the greenish yellow kind of tinge that's on like the side of him here. And then, I mean, this is a very big small nitpick. I mean, that's kind of there. I didn't think I docked off points for that, but I'm just saying that, like, I think maybe there could have been some work on maybe like removing the blues from the jersey, and then maybe adding like a little bit more shadows of some sort, just to give it a little bit more depth in order to like maybe bump up the score a little bit more. So overall, this design finished with a 17.5. So for this next design, we have JustinK's Ken Griffey Jr. baseball card. So let's first start off with the composition, which got a 4.5. I think I really like the layout of this card. I like the banner in the front, and then you got Griffey standing, and you also did a good job of implementing a field on something that really, on a background that was just kind of solid. So that was really nice, and I think overall it was a pretty good composition. I think the only thing that was a little bit odd maybe was the fact that he just kind of seems a little bit dark. This could also fall into attention to detail. Excuse me. He's kind of lighter over here, like his, I guess, not character cut, but he's kind of like darker over here. And I get that it's like kind of like probably where the sun was, but I feel like you could have like maybe like used levels or something to bring up the brightness on this cut back here. And then we move into the color. I think just due to the fact that it was like just a solid like blue color scheme, I didn't think I liked it as much as, say, someone that used like complementary colors. I mean, the shades of blue were it was okay. I don't think it was the best though, in my opinion. So I got a 4. And then for creativity, it was also a 4. I think this is a really creative design. I think the banner really does help make it just that added, like, just, I guess, bonus of like a little bit of hint of creativity, I guess. And then I do like the little, like, I forget what the technical term is for this, where you got the repeating logos in the back. And then overall, I think this is a really creative design, especially with the fact the banner and like this repeating logo thing. And then for innovation, it got a 4 for me. This is pretty innovative. Yeah, innovated, I think. it does kind of inspire me to make a design, I would say, because like it just has a really nice composition, and it's something that you can look to and like try to base off your design almost, because like I think this is done well enough to the point where it is something you could use as a reference. So I think that also was really good. So it got a 4. And then finally for attention to detail, also a 4. I think this only really had to do with the fact that like that dark, like calligraphy being dark and a little bit darker on this side, it was just a little bit off compared to the fact they slider over here. And yeah, it got a 4. And that finished out with a final score of 20.5. So next up we have Giddens, Justin Herbert per design, and for composition I give it a 5. I really like the paint strokes, and I really just like the layout with the whole gold foil and everything. I think it was a really nice composition, very simple, but it worked really well for this design, so we got a 5. So for color I give you a 4. This was like the only thing I didn't like about it as much was the fact that like I think that maybe the reason was probably due to the fact that just the chargers like colors on this thing were a little bit odd in my opinion. I also feel like Justin Herbert was a little bit too saturated to the point where he kind of matched the yellow, which may have been what you were trying to go for, but the thing is that the lightning bolts and everything on the jersey were like really desaturated compared to the fact that he was really saturated, so that kind of threw me off a little bit. Now that may have just been the image, or that may have just been, I don't think the jersey looked like that though, it was like a more yellow kind of feel, but overall we got a 4. And then for creativity, 4.5. I think this is pretty creative. I think that there could have been like just one other thing just done. I don't know what that would have been, but I feel like since you do have such a high score, you could have probably figured out what it would have been. For innovation, yeah, I would say this does inspire me to make a design, I think, because I really do like the, I guess, layout and everything, and like your color correction is really nice, and like the cuts and everything are really well done. So it got a 4.5, and then finally for attention to detail, as I said, the cuts were really well done. I think the only thing that you could have like maybe looked at possibly was the fact that you got like light kind of like bouncing off of him here, but like I don't know if you were trying to go for a light source or if you're just trying to go for the glow. That may have just been my mistake that I saw, but there's not really a lot I can say about the attention to detail from looking at it. So overall, that got a 4.5. It probably could have been a 5, but you still won, so it got a final score of 22.5. So for the next design here, we have CR Edits, Cody Bellinger design. So for composition, I gave you a 3.5. It's kind of like a lot of the other compositions, like the player and like in the front, and then like the other bigger, I guess, like top half image in the back. It's like kind of like a manipulation. Like I feel like this, like having the LA logo here is kind of a little bit cheesy, and I also feel like that these shadows just are kind of like not done well. Like they're just kind of just under where the foot is. And then you got this ball here, but like I just don't understand what's the point of having this. I mean, if it was like the ball was coming at him, maybe, but I don't feel like the ball was necessary in this case. So, and then like you got these checkered kind of like flags up here, which I don't understand why they're here, but they're just kind of here. I don't know if that was just something that was on like whatever, but it turned out to be a 3.5 for composition. For color, a 3.5. I don't know, but like the light blue and the fact that the color of Cody Bellinger and like his skin turned pink was probably not the best thing, and the Dodgers color turned blue, like to a light blue or cyan almost. It was kind of a little bit off, so I didn't get full points on that. So I gave you a 3.5 on that. For creativity, 3.5. I do like the idea of how, like, it looks cool that you have them on there. I just don't know if it was executed well. So it turned out to be only a 3.5 for that. For innovation, this got a 3.5. I feel like that, this is, I wouldn't say it's the most inspiring design. It's pretty good. I think, like, overall, I don't know if it inspires me, though. That's the thing. I really don't know, like, how this could inspire me that much. But I feel like the elements of, like, the, I guess, manipulation were good enough for me to, like, feel a little bit inspired. And then finally, attention to detail. I think the main part about this is probably, like the cuts of the edges around Cody Bellinger here, and the fact that, like, it's kind of blurred, the baseball, but it's, like, half blurred. I feel like either you stick to it being fully blurred or you leave it unblurred. But that's just kind of like a thing where it's like, because I don't really understand what you were trying to accomplish here. That's the thing. And then, yeah, so I think this right here kind of knocked off points, and also maybe the shadows as well. And I think that maybe you could have done a better job of blending this logo somehow into the background. But overall, we got a 3 for attention to detail, which finished out with a final score of 17.
Thank you guys for sticking around and checking out this first round of the chaos. Big shout out to Call Me Nick. Make sure you guys follow CMNO. I'll link his social media, as well as I'll try to list everybody that is participating in this challenge